Hi, everybody. We are reaching the final stretch, ninth inning,
How many years?
4 years. This is lesson number 144. And we are starting the chapter 53. Just like the Torah is divided into 53 portions, so is Tanya divided into 53 chapters. And either today or next lesson we'll conclude. I want to share with you a brief summary of the chapter, and so that when we read, we can move a little faster, also not lose track of what we're talking about. So in the last 3 chapters, 50, 51, 52, the rabbi was speaking about the system of godliness and creation of each universe. There are 4 universes. Atzilut, emanation, is the first universe. There is nothing there. It's too powerful for anything to be other than God. God needed a shrine, kodesh HaKadoshim, holy of holies. I found it translated as shrine, God's shrine. My shrine is my brains. My godly soul is in the brains. We learned that in chapter 1. God, life starts from the brains. We studied at the end of life, the soul departs the body from the brains. That's why the nostrils. That's where we put a feather to see if he's still breathing based on the movement of the feather. The brains is the shrine of the human. In the Kabbalistic terminology, we call it the 10 attributes, starting with Chokhmah. The first of the 3, Chokhmah Bina Dat, generally termed intelligent, the power of intelligence, is in the brains. The other 7 or 6 are in the rest of the body, emotional and action. So the 10 attributes begin, the 10 attributes we're talking about begin in the world of Bria. That's the shrine for God, meaning that's where it all starts. After it descends into 9 levels, it will reach the bottom. The bottom is Malchut, royalty, kingdom, which is responsible for giving birth to the next generation, the next universe. There is a shrine in the next universe, Chokhmah, Chabad, Chokhmah Bina Dat of the next universe, and it will go down to Malchut. Malchut is another one that creates a new shrine in the following world. And those levels are myriads upon myriads with no end. Just like human beings, each human being is considered a universe. In general, we have 3 more universes: Bria, creation; Yetzira, formation; Asiya, action. So we have a total of 3 universes, and each one it goes. The way they work, Beria is the first 3 of the 10. More important are the Chokhmah Bina Dat, the intelligence. Yet the second universe is about emotions, and the third universe is about action. We spoke about it many, many times. That's why if I pray to God and I put my kavana, my thought into the prayer, where does it go? Beria, the world of intelligence. If I'm not involved with kavana, and I do it out of fervent love for God, I know I need to pray to God, but I don't even think about it. It creates angels in the world of Yetzira, formation, because that's where your emotions are. If no kavana, no purpose, I have no idea what I'm doing, I'm just sitting here like everybody else, but I still utter the words, I'm praying to God. It remains in the world of Asiya, creates angels in here. Do you remember that? Everybody remembers that? Thank you. The rabbi is going to take it for, okay. And one more thing we studied last week, I believe, that the Yenuka, this prodigy, the young man, the young smart man said that the human being is like a flame, like a candle. And the flame is the light of God is above the head. How do you fuse it? How do you keep filling fuel into it? Study of Torah, because it needs to consume. The study of Torah is the fuel that fuels godliness above the head. Anybody remember that? Huh? Oh, good.
Yes.
Says the Rebbe, now the Rebbe is going to take it full circle. There is something called holy shrine in this physical tzuvut. Bless you. There is something called full holy shrine in this universe, which is the Holy of Holies in the temple, in the Jewish temple in Jerusalem. And that spot had godliness greater than all the other universes. That's the uniqueness. So let me again summarize it. When God created this universe, according to halacha, Jewish law, there are 10 levels of holiness. There is the universe, there is the Holy Land, there is greater holiness, whatever grows there, first 3 years, the trees, not the benefit, everything grows, you have to give tithe, 7 years, the sabbatical, does not apply outside of Israel. The Holy Land is second. Cities that are surrounded by walls are a third level. Cities of refuge, a fourth level. Jerusalem, 5. Temple Mount, 6. The courtyard, 7. The Exile, the place where they brought sacrifices. There was a place for men, there was a place for Levites, there's a place for Kohanim, and then you have Holy of Holies. That's number 10. The holiest of them all, the epitome, the top. Now, in that place, says the Rebbe, at the time of the first temple, now the Rabbi is going to talk about first temple era, second temple era, and after the destruction of the temple. The first temple era, there was such great holiness that you can sense godliness. That's why there were miracles there, that the ark placed there was not taking any space. I'm sure you heard that from me. The measurement of the Holy of Holies, that space is 20 by 20, I believe, and the ark itself was like 2.5. So it should have been, if you measure from one wall to the other, it should take. If it actually, I'm sorry, the walls are 20 feet, 20 amma. If you measure from one wall to the beginning of the ark, it was 10 amma. If you measure from the other wall to the Holy Ark, there is another 10 amma. It doesn't make sense because it was 2.5 amma. Where did the 2.5 amma get swallowed? Another miracle was that there was cherubs. There were 2 figurines that were hovering over each other. They were made out of gold. But when the Jewish people disobeyed God, they were facing the back of each other, turning around by themselves. How can it happen? There were no living plants. There were no living animals or humans. These were miracles that can be shown by human beings. Also, a man that was not holy enough that enters that place will not make it back alive. We know during the second temple, even though the Holy Ark was missing, there were a few Kohanim that they died, and the Yom Kippur, they had to be pulled out with chains. So that place is the shrine of God in this universe, and that shrine, as the Rabbi will explain, I'm summarizing the chapter. God from Chokhmah goes to Malchut of Atzilut. Remember the world of emanation? It skipped the world of Bria, skip the world of Yetzirah, skip creation, skip formation, and goes to action, skip all 9, and goes down straight to the Holy of Holies. And therefore, the holiness in the Holy of Holies, the shrine for God, was greater than the world of formation or the world of creation. So angels were not connected to God in the same level as was a man came to pray to God in the temple. What happened in the second temple, where did not have the Holy Ark? Anybody is familiar? There was a king called Chizkiyahu. 50 years before the destruction of the first temple, he knew that Jerusalem is about to fall down. Why is it about to fall down? Because the people did not conduct themselves properly, and Jeremiah already prophesizing there will be no future. What did he do? He was able to find caves and tunnels that King Solomon already predicted and built into the mountain. And in those caves below the temple, he took the holy ark and he hid it there. So the second temple was missing 5 items. Somebody asked me this week at a class. When?
I remember you saying.
Somebody asked me this week, and here's are the 5. I went and searched them. Holy Ark was missing, meaning the 10 Commandments, the broken tablets and the complete tablets are gone. The fire that came from above to the altar when King Solomon prayed to God, we studied it today in Talmud, to open up the gates and God to show favor to David, the fire came from above and looked like a lion lying on the altar. Throughout 400 years, 410 years of the first temple, that fire was there continuously. Even though they kept feeding the fire, it looked like a lion and it was there forever. Second temple, there was no fire that came from above. The third is divine inspiration. For the high priest used to have, he would speak on behalf of God. In the first temple, the second temple was missing. That's number 3. Number 4 is the breastplate that the high priest wore was missing. And there was one more thing. Huh?
The breastplate didn't do like the tzitz.
The tzitz they had, actually.
The breastplate didn't.
The breastplate was missing.
Wait, how was Christianity?
Fire, in divine inspiration from God, and Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration by humans. Okay, there was no prophecy anymore. The prophets ended at the time of the first temple. Jeremiah is the last one. After that came Daniel, Ezra, and Nehemiah. They are the 24 books, but there's no prophecy there. There's no prophecy. There's not prophesied. Prophecy meaning divine message stop at the second temple. So these are the 5 things that are missing. What? Actually, the menorah was missing too. Yeah. So Chizkiah is the one who was a king, and he knew that it's coming, so he decided to.
I remember correctly, anyone touching that giant.
Yeah. What's the question?
He was able to do it,
No, he ordered the priest to do that. They were allowed to.
but he didn't.
He's the king. He's in charge. Like when Ali does the minyan, I get all the credit. I'm the rabbi.
But I thought no one even touched
He
it.
does the work, but it's credit to me. I am priding myself. I have a minyan every day. You know, and people say, "Oh, this rabbi, he has a minyan every morning." I don't do nothing. I just tell Ali to do the work. He ordered that, and everyone, out of respect to the king, could not argue or disagree or dissent. They followed order. And the Kohanim are the ones who dug the tunnel, found the tunnel, dug a little bit until and that's where they place it. The Gemara says that there is a Talmud story. During the second temple, one priest, and they knew that it's underground. There is access to it underground of the temple. The Gemara says a priest who was walking, they had to walk barefoot. A lot of them would get a cold or viruses very quick because in Jerusalem it's very cold. It snows. It's very cold. It's below 0, not Fahrenheit, it's Celsius. So it's below freezing. And they had to walk barefoot on the stones, on the stones, which was very, very cold. They had a doctor just caring for the Kohanim that got sick all the time, especially in the winter. One priest, while walking, he saw a stone that was a little bit wibbling. And he suspected that's the access to the tunnel underneath. So he called another Kohen. He says, "Come on, I'm going to show you something very unique." And before he had a chance to show him, he died. He fell down and died. So the Gemara says that because once Chizkiah did it, God was pleased and wanted no one to have it so that it should not fall into the wrong hands. And since then, the lost ark, Indiana Jones and the Masons and everybody is looking for it on different islands. I saw once a program about people who digging in certain islands in South America. You know what I'm talking about?
Ireland.
Huh?
Ireland.
Ireland? Okay, in Ireland too, because they say that they ran there while they were taken and they were stolen from them. There is all kinds of ideas for the lost ark. We know, and there was a program just recently, we know it's underneath down below in the Holy Temple, inside the Temple Mount. So on the second temple, there was no Holy Ark. So the shrine remained the same. However, says the Rebbe, the second temple, the holiness level is lower. And based on Kabbalah, now you're a Kabbalist, you can understand it very well. In the first temple, what was there? The 10 Commandments. You know what 10 Commandments are? Torah, wisdom, teaching, lessons. It came from Bria. Remember the world of Bria is the angels of intelligence? So it came to that universe, Chokhmah, from then came down here on earth. And the rabbi will say that it's even higher than Bria and higher than Tzilut, because Torah is God's wisdom. God's wisdom before it even started the 10 attributes. But that's before, soon we're going to get there. In the second temple, what was missing? The Holy Ark. What's so special about the Holy Ark? That it contains God's handwriting, the 10 Commandments. So there is no intelligence, but there is emotions, and therefore it went down, godliness, go down to Yetzirah, the world of formation, and from there it jumps down to this universe. So there were no open miracles there anymore. The Ark was not there to prove that the space is immeasurable, but still it was a holy place, because some Kohanim in the second temple that entered wouldn't make it alive because it was from Yetzirah straight. What happens after the second temple is destroyed? Remember 3, 3, 3. You have 3 intelligence, 3 emotional, 3 of action. Now godliness is within the universe of action, where anytime we follow Torah instructions, we are creating a shrine for God. So I can make a shrine, Holy of Holies, right now. Not to can, we do, by studying Torah. The Gemara says, by the way, what I'm saying is not lofty Kabbalah. It's all based on Jewish law. If you open up Code of Law, you'll find it. It's just Kabbalah explain how it works and why. It suddenly things fall into place. There are so many other, it accommodates so many other commentary and so much other laws. The Gemara says, the day that the temple is destroyed, Ein lo la'akadosh baruch hu, God does not have anything but Daled Amot, 4 cubits shel halacha, of Jewish law. In other words, you want to find God? You study Torah. That's why the Mishnah said, anytime a man studies Torah, God is sitting next to him studying Torah with him. What it refers to is the holy shrine for God. Remember the descent of the 4 universes. In the first temple, you go to Jerusalem, into the Holy of Holies. That's God's shrine. In other words, it came from Beria, Chokhmah of Bria. In the second temple, there was no Holy Ark. It's from Yetzirah. It already is a descent. It's still very holy. It's above this universe. There were miracles. However, it's not as great as the first. After that, everything is in this universe. So I had to go to Beria 10 levels, Yetzirah 10 levels, Asiyat 9 levels, and came to the 10th. When I study Torah, I am creating a shrine for God. Harry, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
The rabbi is going to, by the way, bring in Kabbalistic language. The rabbi is going to address other questions and other topics, but that's the gist of what the rabbi is going to talk about. And that's why the Yenuka, the rabbi will conclude. The rabbi that we study in chapter 50, the Yenuka, this smart young man said, if you want to keep God's light above your head, you need to study Torah, says the Rebbe, because now the destruction of the temple, there is no other place you can find God. At the time of the temple, you go to the holy temple. At the time of the first, you have even greater godliness. At this point, the only place you find God is when you study Torah. You are fueling godliness in the world of Asiya. I hope I made myself clear.
The second temple lasted what, 410 or
420.
420? They have a Kohen Gadol that survived every year.
Yeah. In the second temple, there was one Kohen that was 80 years, Yochanan Kohen Gadol, until he became Saddukite, right? There was another one for 40 years. There was another one for, I believe, 26 years. Then there was a bunch of them that purchased that from the Romans, because the Romans ruled. They allowed the Jews autonomy, but they were the rulers. And they purchased it with lots of money by bribery. They wouldn't make it more than they would be appointed, and then 10 months later, it's Yom Kippur. They would bring spices, the Ktoret, in the Holy of Holies, and they wouldn't come back alive. They wouldn't come out. They would have to pull them out. And there were numerous. The Gemara lists some of them. But between, by the way, 230 years, I believe 180 years is between four. Four rule over a period of 180 years. Harry, did you understand what I just we studied so far? What I shared with until now? Okay, very good. So what the rabbi is going to do is come full circle. Holly, are you listening? The rabbi is going to come full circle and tell us, as we are going to summarize, I hope to be able to show with you a summary of everything we study in all the chapters in general, or segments of chapters. Love of God, fear of God, reflection of God, like the water that reflects my face. If I'm happy, God is happy, etc. All the everything is great. But the rabbi is going to come full circle and say, nothing beats the study of Torah and the performance of mitzvah. Because when I study Torah, I connect to God. When I perform a mitzvah, I connect to God. And that's what the rabbi is going to tell. And even angels are not able to, because they did not get any mitzvah. That's why the fight. Anybody familiar with, there was a fight between the angels and Moshe. If they should keep, he had to grab them and fight them. He literally had to fight them. They wanted to kill him. They said, "Keep no hoitcho ala shamayim. Live the Torah, the great beauty. Live it in heavens." What does it mean Moshe got it? That we create a shrine for God. The Torah is the receptacle for God. In other words, the outlet that I can connect God. God is an appliance. Is here. When I study Torah, I connect. When I do mitzvah, I connect. Up in heaven, they can do it. Somebody lives in a penthouse like the angels in a much higher level. In order for them to connect to God at this point, they have to come in here. If they want to connect to God during the temple, they go to the Holy of Holies. That's why there is many, so as I showed you, there's it accommodates so many stories and so much in the Jewish tradition. There is a actually not one, famous stories where rabbis walked around the Holy Temple from the back. The west side was where the Holy of Holies was. And they heard angels speaking. Anybody familiar with Acher, Elisha ben Avuya? Are you familiar? So there was, he said, the rabbis told him return, and he says, no, I was once on Yom Kippur on the west side. I heard an angel say, everybody can return to me except Acher, except Elisha. Where did he hear that? Not in yeshiva, not in synagogue, not at home, but in the Holy of Holies. There are many times Kohanim would walk in and say that they heard the voices of angels speaking to them. Because when the angels want to connect to God, they know that's the place for them to connect, more than any other universe. Because when God, and that's the rabbi is going to bring in, even in the first temple, it comes with the Torah. The Torah is God's wisdom. So it's above Seder Ishtalshelus. It's above the chain order of the 30 levels, because it's God's wisdom before the four universes. Did I make myself clear?
Do every people angel.
People are angels?
The
envy
people.
You envy people who can see angels?
Yeah.
The angels envy you for studying Torah. When you study Torah, they envy you.
When Moshe gave the angels an argument, I think the Torah says, how can you do Chabad of having parents? What do you want it for?
It's not a simple answer, because the angels knew that. It's not so simple. But let's study page 825, chapter 53. I'm going to read the commentary of the rabbi only here. The rest of them I don't think we need so much, or I'll skip many of them. Page 825. The Alter Rebbe explained in the previous chapter that the light of the Shechinah, an illumination utterly transcending the realm of the world, must have a garment which enables it to radiate there. The garment of the Shechinah is Torah. In every world, there is found the intelligence of that particular world, namely the Sfirot of Chochmah, Binah, and Dat of that world. They constitute the shrine of the Holy of Holies, in which the Shechinah resides. After the levels of Chabad, in which resides the Shechinah, descend into the level of Malchut, of a particular world, that creates the creatures of that world are then created. From Malchut, it creates the entire universe, and it is the mother that creates the next universe. By vesting itself in Malchut, moreover, the light of the Shechinah is then able to descend into the shrine of the Holy of Holies in the next lower world. The Alter Rebbe explained this process as it applies to all worlds, down to and including the spiritual world of Asiya. The last one. In chapter 53, he will go on to explain how the light of the Shechinah descends and illuminates this physical world. During the time of the first and the second temple, the Shechinah was housed in the Holy of Holies. Today, it finds its abode in a Jew's study of Torah and performance of the mitzvot. He will also explain the difference between the levels of illumination of the Shechinah in the first and second Beit Hamikdash temple, on one hand, and the level of Shechinah, which is drawn down through the study of Torah and the performance of mitzvot, on the other. And that's what the rabbi is going to do now. At the time the first temple stood, in which the Ark and the Tablets were housed in the Holy of Holies, says the Rebbe, the Shechinah, divine presence, which is Malchut of Atzilut, that is, the revealed light of the Ein Sof, a light which is intrinsically is infinite and transcends all world, and which nevertheless was revealed in them, dwelled there and was clothed in the 10 commandments, which were engraved upon the tablets found in the Ark in the Holy of Holies. In other words, the godliness of the 10 commandments is far greater than the godliness in the 10 attributes of even the Atzilut. Far more intensely and with a greater and mightier revelation than its revelation in the shrines of the Holy of Holies above in the upper worlds of Beria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. For page 817, the 10 commandments are the all-embracing principles of the whole Torah, as explained in this Azarot of Rabbi Saadia Gaon. The 10 commandments incorporate all 613 mitzvot of the Torah. See also beginning of the Tanya Chapter 20. Rabbi Saadia Gaon says that if you, and the rabbi is going to show it, the 10 commandments have exactly 620 letters. God gave us 613 commandments. The rabbis added 7 commandments. Washing hands. There are 7 commandments. Reading Megillah and Purim. There are 7 commandments added by the rabbis. Together is 620. Rabbi Saadia Gaon has a book where he finds how each one of the 620 commandments is connected to one of the 10 commandments. In other words, you think 10 commandments are 10 commandments. You think they are very important, the top 10. You think they are general. It's not true. He is able to find in words or letters or sentences, each one, and he has a book, each one of the 620 commandments. The commandments about the Holy Land, the grounds. The commandments about Shabbat, the commandments about holidays, the commandment about slavery, the commandment about kosher, the commandment about sacrifices, all can be found within, and he was able to put it in writing. In other words, the 10 commandments is the essence, the DNA, so to say, the root of the entire Torah, which derives from the level of supernal Chokhmah, that is, Chokhmah of Atzilut, that is far higher than the world of manifestation. We continue, page 828. In order to engrave them on material tablets of stone, it, supernal Chokhmah, which is Torah, did not descend degree by degree, parallel to the order of descent of the worlds, which descend by stages from a higher world to lower world until it reaches this material world. In other words, the 10 commandments, the 2 tablets that God gave Moshe, came straight from Atzilut into the physical universe. Everyone else had to go through 10 levels of Atzilut, 10 levels of Bria, 10 Yetzirah, 10 Asiya, and then the physical world. 10 commandments came from God directly. In other words, therefore, it is connected to God at a much greater level than anything else. Generally, in order for a flow of divine light to arrive at this physical universe, it must first descend from a world to world, coming down through the world of Yetzirah and spiritual Asiya, both of which are higher than its ultimate destination, this world. This, however, was not the case with the tablets, for this material world functions through the garb of material nature, which while the tablets are the work of God, a divine creation in which godliness, not nature, is revealed. That's why when we describe the 10 commandments, it says that it is God's work. What do you mean it's God's work? This universe is not God's work. Me is not God's work. Everything God created. Nothing was not God's work. What it refers to is that God's work directly without going through the 10 veils of one universe, another 10 veils, another 10 veils, and finally coming to this universe. It is looking at it, you can see God's work. Why? It did not occupy space. Also, there was another miracle there. I don't know if anybody is familiar with the Hebrew alphabet has 2 letters that are complete circle. Final mem is a square, and samach is almost like a final mem, it's round at the bottom. Now you have final mem and you have samach in the 10 commandments. The 10 commandments were engraved through and through. So you have the 10 commandments, you have 2 tablets of stone, they're about this thick, and the letters were engraved throughout, all the way to the side, to the other side. By the way, there was another miracle that if you flip them, you can read it the same way, even though it was not written, it was engraved all the way. The question is, how did final mem and samach lived? Because the middle part has nothing to be held. Aleph, you can engrave. Bet, Gimel, Dalet, every letter you can engrave, and it's still part of the stone. Final mem and samach has no ability to stand on its own. If I would engrave through final mem, the middle part would be falling. The miracle was that it was still there. It floated. In other words, that's what we call God's writing and God's work. Even though this universe is also God's work, but it follows nature. If I do not put good foundation for the building, it would crumble. Because God came down after so many changes, contractions, that it must be, it's enveloped in nature, and it needs to follow certain rules. The 10 Commandments is God's work, and therefore there were no rules. No, it's not bound by any limitations. What?
Moshe wrote the first tablets, God told him to engrave the second. They didn't flow, they were sapphire, no, they were engraved, not through and through. Or were they?
So I saw a commentator today about the 10 Commandments that if you pay attention in the Torah, when they talk about the first set, when God says to Moshe, go down, it says that God gave him the tablets, that they were the work of God and the writing of God. Ve'aluchot ma'aseh, action or doing of God, hema, ve'amichtav, michtav Elokim hu. And the writing is writing of God, as charut al aluchot, engraved on the tablets. When it comes to the second tablets, when it came down the second time, it doesn't say it was the work of God. It says it was the writing of God. And one commentator says, because it wasn't a work of God, Moshe had to carve out those 2 tablets and bring it to God. God says to Moshe, you broke them, you fixed them. You find me another one. and he brought in from under his tent, right? You know the Medrash? He found sapphire under the tent, and the ground under his tent. He carved out the tablets the exact same size. With them, he went back to the Mount Sinai, and then he came back down with God's handwriting. So the second tablets wasn't more God's work. It was Moshe's work. That's why the Torah is very careful to say it was God's writing, not God's work on the second one. Does that answer your question? Harry, Ali, just a minute. Harry, does that answer your question? Okay.
Did God write it, or did?
Of course. So the miracle of the mem, final mem and final samach was in the second one equal to the first, except the second one was Moshe's carving of those two.
Is the final mem called Mem Sophie?
Yes.
That's what I learned.
Sof is
Right.
end.
Right.
Okay. Final nun, nun Sophie.
Yeah.
Final pay, pay Sophie. So in Hebrew, we call it pay Sophie. Where did you learn Hebrew?
Where?
Where? Yes.
My Hebrew school in Buffalo.
So they taught you Mem Sophit?
Sarah teaches.
So when I grew up, there was Mem Sophit, because in Israel, that's where you go.
That's the way Sarah teaches.
But here, it's, should I say unfortunate? I don't know, but
No.
they call it final mem because, Heidi, let me explain. Here, final mem is easy for English-speaking children or adults when they learn, because it's called final mem. So you know, at the end of the word, you put, if it's a mem, you put the final mem. If I would call it mem sofit, they would say, where does it belong? When do you put regular mem? When people do something?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
so I grew up in Hebrew, in Israel, because the word sofit is end.
right.
But for someone who don't speak Hebrew, it's much easier to call it final. In Yiddish, they don't call it final, they call it endemem. Ende, end, like end in English, ende, the end. So the letters have a name that don't change, except those 5 final, that they would be named based on the language. So in Chinese, they would call a final mem, in Mandarin, whatever end. Beyond, on page 829, beyond the nature of this material world, which is derived from the radiance of the Shechinah in the shrine of the Holy of Holies of Asiya, from which light and vitality issue to the world of Asiya, in which the physical world is also included. The ray of Shechinah, which is in the shrine of Holy of Holies of Asiya, gives this physical world its vitality after first being garbed in the Malchut of Asiya. As explained earlier, this was not the case with the tablets. What the Rabbi is saying is, in every universe, the shrine, the brains, the Chokhmah is the one who starts to create the entire universe. And then the last one is the beginning that would create Chokhmah to start the next universe. This universe, while the temple stood, the first temple, there was the Chokhmah of Atzilut, the highest before it starts in any universe, much greater than that. That's why it was not confined to any physical boundaries of any kind. And that was the first temple. But the level of the supernal Chokhmah of Atzilut, consisting of the totality of the Torah as it is encapsulated in the Ten Commandments, clothed itself in Malchut of Atzilut and the Bria and of Bria alone, and did not clothe itself further in the lower world. So it went from Atzilut and Bria, then to Bria. From Bria, it jumped straight to this universe. And they alone, Chokhmah of Atzilut, as it is garbed in Malchut of Atzilut and Malchut of Bria, without further vestment, united as they are with the infinite light of the Ein Sof that is within them, and they are referred to as the Shechinah, which rested in the Holy of Holies in the first temple, through its being vested in the Ten Commandments, which were engraved in by miraculous means in the tablets reposing in the Ark. I hope it is clear what I just shared. As the sages tell us, the letters Mem and Samach, circular letters hewn through the entire thickness of the stone, stood in their place miraculously. Moreover, the Ten Commandments upon the tablets were the work of the living God, Elokim Chaim, This being that in terms of the Sfirot, Bina of Atzilut, which is known as the concealed world, which nests in the world of Beria, as is known to the students of Kabbalah. Now the Rabbi is going to talk about the second temple. So the first temple, you had the Ten Commandments. It's the DNA of the entire Torah, and therefore it came from Bria. It from Atzilut to Bria, from Bria it jumped down. As for the second temple, in which the Ark and the tablets did not repose, these being among the 5 things found in the first temple and lacking the second, our rabbis of blessed memory said that the Shechinah did not abide there. Shechinah wasn't there, meaning that it's one of the 5, as I told you. This means not that, God forbid, the Shechinah did not abide there at all. Rather, it speaks of the category of Shechinah which is used to abide in the first temple, which was not in the manner of the ordinary descent of the world. It was this level of Shechinah that did not abide in the second temple, but only a far lesser level of Yetzirah, of the world of formation. Page 831. But in the second temple, it abided according to the order of gradual descent of Malchut of Atzilut, vested in Malchut of Bria, and the ladder in Malchut of Yetzirah, and the ladder in the shrine of the Holy of Holies of Asiya, that shrine being the Chabad of Asiya. So it went through from Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, and from Yetzirah I came into this universe. And the Holy of Holies of Asiya was clothed in the Holy of Holies of the temple below. In it rested the Shechinah, that is Malchut of Yetzirah, which was clothed in the Holy of Holies of Asiya. I hope I explained to you before when I shared with you. Ali, are you following?
Yeah.
You understand everything?
So in the second temple, it went through the universe.
Right. No, the first temple, it went to the world of Beria. From Beria, Chokhmah of Beria, it went down. The second temple to Yetzirah, the next one. From the, as we're going to talk about Exile, the second temple is gone. Now it went down to Asiya, and it comes to each one starting to. Therefore, and all the Holy of Holies of Asiya was clothed in the Holy of Holies of the temple below. In it rested the Shechinah, that is Malchus Yetzirah, which was clothed in the Holy of Holies of Asiya. Therefore, because the Shechinah resided in the temple's Holy of Holies, no man was permitted to enter there except the high priest on Yom Kippur, even though the ark was missing. And since the destruction of the temple, of which the sanctuary was a part, God resides in the shrine of Holy of Holies of Torah and mitzvot. For, as mentioned earlier, the Shechinah must reside in the Holy of Holies. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, has put the 4 cubits of Alecha alone.
What was the Holy of Holies in the second temple?
Has but what?
What was in the Holy of Holies in the second temple?
Empty.
Right.
There was a stone there on which he placed the spices. That's it. But there was divine inspiration, power, because some high priest who entered would not make it alive. In other words, the miracle of the first temple didn't exist anymore because there was no holy ark. There was no cherubs. There was no cherubim anymore.
So the Torah that the high priest burned on Yom Kippur were put on some stone.
On a stone. They placed a stone. There was a stone, and he placed it on the stone. Yes. So missing all the miracles because now it's Yetzirah. After that, God would not have but the 4 cubits of Allah, of Jewish law. What?
You would have thought the second temple being standing again, all the 5 things disappeared, would just come up again. Glitz destruction.
What?
When the first temple was destroyed, 5 things were hidden, went down and below the
50 years before it was destroyed, the Holy Ark was taken away.
So when the second temple was resurrected, or
Not resurrected, rebuilt.
started, right, okay, why weren't these things brought up again?
Why? They didn't have them. They didn't know what they were.
We know them.
No. And I told you one time somebody did find, and the Gemara says before he had a chance to bring his friend, his colleague, he died. And everything is divine providence. It's because God did not want. Why did God not want? The rabbi, it's in between the lines, very obvious. The Jewish people were at a much lower level. and therefore the connection to God was much far removed. Therefore, remember we study about kavana. When you pray with kavana, you got to create an angel in the Beria. Less kavana, the angel of emotions, of Yitzira. No kavana, asiya. It's all work together. The first temple, they were very close to God. So there was prophecy, there was breastplate, there was holy ark, there was fire on the altar from the shape of a line from heaven. Second temple, it lacked. You know why it lacked? Not because they didn't have funds, not because they didn't know where it was, simply because they were not as holy, they were not deserving of that relationship. After the destruction of the second temple, we're not worthy of that relationship. That's why I call it exile. You can build a magnificent synagogue or temple, but it's not going to get us any closer to God. You can connect to God through the study of Torah. You're missing the physical building. Godliness will not be shown in any other place than study of Torah. I hope I made myself clear. Elizabeth? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed is He, be He, has but the 4 cubits of halacha alone. Torah is the shrine of the Holy of Holies that connects God with the world so that Akadosh, the illumination of the Shechinah, which is Kadosh, that is separated and apart from the world. Kadosh is holy, separated, should become Baruch. Baruch is the Hebrew meaning of to drawn down into the world. Akadosh Baruch Hu, Kadosh is holy, removed, Baruch is coming down. And therefore, we study it, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokei, Baruch is bringing down Akadosh Asher Kideshanu, that is sanctified and removed us. We discussed that in Tanya. So Akadosh Baruch Hu is Shechinah as it comes down to this unit. And even if one Jew sits and engages in Torah study, the Shechinah is with him, as is stated in the first chapter of Berachot. The phrase "the Shechinah is with him" means that although he is being of the material world, the Shechinah is divine presence, is nevertheless with him. Remember, it says that the Shechinah, study Torah, the Shechinah is with him. It doesn't say HaKadosh Baruch Hu or Adoshem or Elokim is with him. Shechinah. Shechinah is the name for Malchut that comes into this universe. We talked about it, right? It's female. It's the small mother, the minor mother. The level of Shechinah that is with him in order of the gradual descent and investment in Malchut of Atzilut, in Malchut of Beria and Yetzirah and Asiya. For the 613 commandments, I want to finish today. Can we? Nobody leaves. Well, you made it so far. For the 613 commandments of the Torah are by enlarged precepts which involve action, including even those mitzvot which are fulfilled in the world by word and thought, such as Torah study and blessing of meal, the recital of Shema in prayer. In other words, most of the mitzvot have to do with the physical universe, action. Even the mitzvah of dibur, of speech, like study of Torah, prayer, brachot, etc., Shema. For it has been ruled that meditation is not the validity of speech, and one does not fulfill one's obligation. For by meditation in a matter of irhur, thinking, and kavana alone, until he gives it utterance with his lips, and moreover, it has been ruled that the motion of the lips while one is speaking is considered an action, in which case all these mitzvot involve a form of action. Every single mitzvah is about action. Even speech, like saying the Shema, prayer, mitzvot, blessings, it's all about action because you have to move your lips. If you didn't move your lips, you didn't fulfill the mitzvah. And the 613 commandments of the Torah, together with the 7 commandments of the rabbis, combined to total of numerical equivalent of Keter. The word Keter, crown, is 620, which is the supernal will, which is clothed in his wisdom, and they, God's will and wisdom, are united with the light of the Ein Sof in a perfect union. God founded the earth with wisdom. This refers to the oral law that is derived from the supernal wisdom, as it is written in Zohar, the father, Chochmah, begat the daughter, which is Malchut, the oral law, as it is written, Malchut, the mouth, which we call the oral law. We studied before about the oral law, the written Torah. Remember the Mishnah, the Gemara, the Torah, the three universes? You don't remember that?
Yeah.
So that's what the rabbi is saying. And this is what the Yenuka in Zohar says, quoted in chapter 35, meant when he says that the supernal light that is kindled on the Jew's head, namely the Shechinah, requires oil, in other words, fuel, that is, to be clothed in wisdom, which is called the oil of the holy anointing. The holy signifies Chochmah, or wisdom, as is explained in the Zohar. And these are the good deeds, namely the 613 commandments, which derive from his wisdom. Thereby, the light of the Shechinah can cling to the weak, that is, the vivifying soul, or in the body, which is metaphorically called a wick, for just as in the case of material candle, the light shines by virtue of the annihilation and burning of the wick, turning to fire, so does the light of the Shechinah rest on the divine soul, which is the candle. The soul of the man is candle of the Lord, as a result of the annihilation of the animal soul and its transformation from darkness of Kalipa to light of holiness, and from bitterness of Klipat Nuga to sweetness of holiness in the case of righteous, for tzaddikim. As mentioned in chapter 10, are those who transform the essence of the animal soul, its intellect and emotion, from evil to goodness and holiness, or at least through the destruction of its garment, which are thought, speech, and action, which previously were garments of the vivifying soul, which is a soul of Klippa. We studied in chapter 12 about the Beinoni, and the transformation from the darkness of the Kalipot to the divine light of the Ein Sof, which is clothed and united in the thought, speech, and action of the 620 commandments of the Torah in the case of Beinonim. For as a result of the transformation of the animal soul, originating from Klipat Nuga, from the darkness of Klipot to the light of holiness and so forth, there is brought about the so-called ascent of the feminine waters, the spiritual awakening on the initiative of the recipient, which in turn causes an arousal above to draw down the light of the Shechinah, that is, revealed light of the Ein Sof over one's divine soul, principally dwelling in the brain of the head. And thereby, one may clearly understand the text, and we will finish this when we have a party.
Yeah.
So we have reached the final. Congratulations. It's really a very special time. And I would like to invite you and anyone you know, next Monday night, we will study the last line, conclude the chapter, and I will show it you a very quick summary of the chapters as they are bundled together in units, and we will have a party. I would like to hear any suggestions of what kind of dinner or a party we can have. Please let me know. But I want to wish everyone a good night and congratulations. Mazel tov.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Next